Welcome to the campus home-based meetup style. This is Pam Batchelor, and so I'm going to make sure that we can have audio first of all, so that you make sure everyone's hearing me. So I'm going to ask a quick question as we get started this morning. You can hear me, so we're going to go ahead and launch this poll. If you can hear me, respond. That's always a good way to get this started in the morning. Make sure we can hear. So we'll leave the poll open for about 10 more seconds. Make sure you can hear. Wonderful. Everyone says they can hear me, so that's good. Then we're going to ask if you can see my screen that I was sharing just a minute ago with the slides. Hopefully most folks were able to see that. And right now you see the screen of my daughter, who does not look like that anymore. They grow up too fast. Okay, so it looks like everyone could see the screen as well. So welcome to Homebase Meetup. Everyone, just a minute to get the presentation pulled up. So the opening slide is this link in the welcome message in the chat if you want to click on it, or you can also go into the handout section of GoToWebinar, and you will see two slide decks, one for opening slides that I'm going to go over for a few minutes, and then the second one is for our Canvas specific slides that we'll get to in just a few minutes. Also, while we are in a webinar format, this is your meeting and I'd like you to be collaborative. So if you would like to raise your hand in the attendee panel, I will unmute. And throughout the meeting, you can mute and unmute yourself. So if you would like to be interactive with us today, raise your hand in that I can mute over your audio throughout the meeting. All right, so I see Carolyn's got her hand up. I'm going to unmute you. John, I'm unmuting you. Lindsay, unmuting you. Robert, oh, Rob, sorry. Unmuting you. All right, I'm going to lower the hands, and then if anyone else, as people are joining on, if you would like to be unmuted, so that way you can mute and unmute the meeting today, feel free to raise your hand in that attendee panel. And Lisa, I'll unmute you. And Lisa. All right. Yes, so Lindsay was asking a great question as we get started. All sessions are being recorded, and tomorrow we will be uploading them into YouTube and then sending out those links. So yes, so all the sessions will be recorded, and they will be available for you to review, so we understand if people are multitasking or have other things. If you can't join us with your microphone, if you want to have any questions, feel free to put them in the questions panel for GoToWebinar. So GoToWebinar does have a questions feature as well as handouts, and that's where you'll find copies of the slide deck today for the opening slides as well as for our Canvas specific content. I am joined by Christy with me, so good morning.
Good morning, everybody. I'm so excited to be here.
And we have a lot of good stuff to talk about. And I know with the shift to remote learning, there's probably going to be lots of discussion today. So I'm excited about that. If you are having any audio issues with GoToWebinar, I do recommend sometimes just leaving the webinar and coming back in. Solves a lot of audio issues. But the slide also has information, and this is the second slide. So we are going to go over these opening slides. I'm going to be asking folks if you've already seen them, because opening slides that I talked about on SchoolNet on Tuesday, and I see some familiar faces. And then also, if you went to the Power School or NISA session earlier this week, you also saw these slides. So let me go ahead and ask that question, and then we will go from there. All right, give about 10 more seconds to answer the poll. Looks like we have about half that have voted. So if you've attended a session earlier this week and seen these opening slides, let me know. All right. So it does look like 70% have seen these slides before. So I'm going to just kind of go through them very quickly and know that they're there for you to review as well. So we do have today our Canvas session, and then tomorrow we are having our first session on Go Open NC, which is our statewide platform for open educational resources. So if you are interested in learning more about Go Open NC and being a part of the conversation of what's coming up next, feel free to register for that, and that'll be tomorrow at 10 a.m. We do have our scheduled dates for next year. Please let us know if you see any issues with these dates. We did try to make sure we looked at major conferences that were being held, as well as it looks like we have a typo on September's week for Thursday. That's supposed to be the 24th. So excuse our typo there. But if you see anything, we looked at when Easter was, and spring break would likely be. So we tried to do the best we can. Note that February week could possibly be a virtual week, just depending on Mother Nature's plans. We know January and February can be interesting times in North Carolina. Homebase Optin is delayed until May 15th. So in a couple of weeks, we'll be getting that information out to you for your district. If you're a district, it's your finance officer that opts in. And if it's a charter school, it's your principal or chairman or lead learner, however your position is titled, that can opt in for your school. It does have to be done every year, and it's the same price, $1. Yes, James, they're the right dates and just another typo. Thank you. So we do have, I wanted to point out this important resource. If you haven't seen our remote learning resources and information that our division has been working tirelessly since March on putting together, please make sure you bookmark the site. Lots of great information there, things for parents, things for district administrators, things for teachers. So please make sure that you bookmark that site, and we have a what's updated page where you can see the latest updates. So there is the Power School upgrade was completed this past weekend. Student records transfer is now working. Yay! And there's some links here to what's new for admins and teachers if you want to share. The EDI feed was disabled. That's normal this time of year. Towards the end of the year, we do disable that EDI feed so that way you can be making changes if you need to add grade levels and things for next year. Make sure your contact information is updated for EOY, because we need to make sure we have a correct contact. So if there's a issue or process with Power School, we know who to contact. And so we're looking at EOY to start on June 30th, and then the actual process will either be on July 1st or July 2nd. So stay tuned for more updates from that. So as I mentioned earlier, Go Open NC is available now, and we're having our first Homebase meetup for it tomorrow. I did want to link out that there's a Go Open NC toolkit, which has a lot of presentations and resources that you can share with your teachers and staff members. So please feel free to use those resources. They're there for you, so that way you don't have to reinvent the wheel. But we are excited to see the growth in Go Open NC. We have almost 20,000 users right now, since just starting in December, and we've had over 2,000 instructional resources added to the platform since December, which means teachers are sharing their resources on our platform, which we think is a wonderful thing. And we are working hard to keep that growing, especially during this time of remote learning. So some NESIS updates. I know, it's a big topic about evaluations. Just make sure is complete before the EOY process starts on June 30th. And there's a few reports on this slide that are mentioned. So you want to make sure your person who is responsible for NESIS understands which reports they need to run. So that way they have that information for next year. Learning.com, there was a survey that was sent out a few weeks ago. They're working on processing that survey. And if you have any questions about learning.com, feel free to reach out to Tiffany Kinney. We do know they have a digital skills playlist that's available now for free even for districts who don't purchase learning.com. You can use their digital learning playlist, and Tiffany would have more information about that if it's something you're interested in for the rest of the year. For Imagine Math, kind of a similar story. We have sent out a survey to our pilot sites to see what their feedback is for next year, and to help us understand the effectiveness of the program and how we should advocate for additional funding. But Imagine Math is available next year for that convenience contract. All right, so at the end of the session, we welcome you to give us some feedback. We have a feedback link in the Canvas slides. Let us know how this virtual meeting is. I'm going to check right now to see if some folks that have joined in, if anybody would like to be unmuted, if you could raise your hand in the attendee panel and I can unmute you, and then throughout the meeting, you can mute and unmute yourself to interact with us. So I'm going to give it another glance as folks have been joining in. All right, Samantha, I'm going to unmute you. All right. So I'll just keep a glance on that raise hand panel. So feel free to raise your hand at any point in time if you would like to be unmuted. All right, so with that, we're going to go over to our Canvas slide deck. So I do have it linked here on the last slide of the opening slides if you're with me, or you can also go in the handout section of GoToWebinar, and there is a Canvas slide deck that you can download, a PDF. So either way, you're definitely going to want to have the slide deck open because there's lots of great links that Christy has put in as always. So Christy, I'm going to go ahead and make you the presenter.
Okay.
And I believe the first couple of slides I'll still cover.
Are you seeing the slide deck now?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
So I know Dr. Dietrich is on the phone, and I'll let him introduce himself. He's our new home-based manager, and we are so glad to have him.
Hey, thank you very much, Pam. I appreciate that. I have really enjoyed my time so far here. Homebase is a wonderful opportunity to put resources that can be used across the state. I've been very glad to work with Pam and with what she's done with SchoolNet Canvas and Go Open ER. I think she's doing a fantastic job making sure that the state is getting the resources that they need. And I can't say enough how proud I am of the work that these folks have done under the circumstances that we're all in. I think we're all working real hard to make sure that the state is served properly. So thank you very much. And if anyone has any questions for me, please feel free to contact me and we'll get you any answer you need. Thank you, Pam.
Thank you. And like I said, we're so glad to have Dr. Dietrich, and I believe our home-based team is fully staffed, which is wonderful. And so hopefully things will stay that way for a long time. So we're excited. All right, so Christy, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thank you. I did include welcome and introductions in the slide deck. Pam, just can you confirm that they can chat? Is that correct?
Yes, so if you want to be unmuted, if you want to raise your hand in the attendee panel and I can unmute for introductions, or you can type your introduction into the questions panel and go to our GoToWebinar.
Yeah, so I do have a couple questions for you on the couple of slides later, but I just wanted to make sure before I said we were going to do that. So welcome and introductions today, and then some discussions of some remote learning best practices, specifically monitoring student success. We'll talk a little bit about end of year and course wrap up, as well as some product updates. And then, as always, you have an opportunity to drop in hot topics into this document if you would like to add an item for discussion. And also, of course, you can chat or ask questions using the GoToWebinar tools. But if you are so inclined to either, as Pam said, raise your hand to introduce yourself and share a success story, then we'd love to hear from you. And or if you would like to add your name, school, or district, and possibly, if you have one, a quick remote learning success story. I also included a form here because I would love, as you are surveying your stakeholders, I'm sure as you all are preparing for your remote learning plans moving forward, that you're going to be surveying stakeholders, whether that's parents, students, teachers, administrators. We'd love to hear some of those success stories from you. So I did put a form in here. If there's someone that you think that we could contact to highlight, as you know, on the Homebase bulletins, we highlight a teacher or staff member or team in each of the Homebase bulletins, something that is a success story from Canvas. And so if you have one that you think that we would be able to include, then I really appreciate any of you completing this form to let us know. And that could also be you. If you have done something that you think has really contributed to success and you're proud of the work that you or your team has done, then certainly feel free to nominate yourself. But if anybody would like to share, please raise your hand, and or again, you may type in chat.
All right, so I'll start just so that way we don't talk over each other. I'm going to go down the list of the folks that have asked to be unmuted and let them have a chance to introduce themselves. So the first person I see on my list that's unmuted is Carolyn. So Carolyn, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Carrie Spivey from Edenton-Chowan School District, and I'm currently working from my dining room table, but we're all hanging in there and things are going pretty well as long as the internet holds.
Thank you, Carrie. That is so true. How we're all working with our bandwidth right now.
Right.
All right, so next on my list, John, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good morning, John Mars. I'm on the training team for Homebase here at DPI.
Great to have you with us. And then Lindsay.
Hey everyone, this is Lindsay Skidmore from Duplin County Schools, and we are, despite the inconvenience of being remote learning, it has drawn an emphasis on the need for blended learning environments, and teachers are jumping on board, so we're excited about that.
That's good to hear. All right, Lisa Thompson.
Hey, this is Lisa Thompson with Union County Public Schools. Working from home, busy. We did the Growing with Canvas course. We turned it into, we're doing Rockstar courses, so we kind of repurposed it for that. I have over 1,000 teachers taking that currently, so that's a lot of grading. But we did also our high school secondary PD we included was strictly on Canvas. And in Canvas, of course, And then the elementary PD, we used other resources or other tools as well, but Canvas was a major part of that. And what we're seeing is, I mean, we had the mandate that 312 would use Canvas. And so we've had lots and lots of people getting on board. I've even seen a lot of elementary school where the principal says everybody's using Canvas. So we're getting a lot of traction with our digital resources right now.
That's great to hear. Thank you for sharing. All right, next is Samantha.
Good morning. I'm Samantha Campbell, and I am the Director of Secondary Education for Lincoln County Schools. And some of our great successes is we have been having teachers to use Canvas in an optional basis, even though it's our main learning platform. And this situation with everyone doing the remote learning has really pushed teachers to jump in and get on board if they were a little apprehensive or didn't get the nudge yet. So I offered a lot of virtual Canvas trainings for teachers to really give them the basics of how to get started and how to build their course. And I had groups of over 70 teachers at a time on there doing that learning process. So I had my end of year or the executive business report this week. And it was amazing to see the number of how we had increased our use of Canvas within that 1 month from March to April, and see that data and how it has really grown within our district, and how people are really getting on board and utilizing Canvas. And so it's been great to see, and I look forward to more people using it in the future.
Thank you for sharing. That is great to see how you're going from optional to having so much growth. So I see Dr. McManus. Let me unmute you so you can introduce yourself.
Hi, this is Dr. Sarah McManus. I work with the North Carolina Deaf and Blind Schools, and our teachers are really starting to use Canvas a lot more, similar to what the last caller said. Some of them were kind of playing around with it, but they're really now using it to do the remote learning. They're also using the conference area with their students, and they found that very interactive for them, and that some of them are using Teams. So they're either using the Canvas conferences or the Teams. And some of the principals are also using Canvas conferences for their staff meetings, which is great. So they're using it as an example for how well it works. And we also have one of our music teachers who's actually doing a guest speaker this Friday for her class. So he's going to be a part of the Canvas conference as well. So they're really taking to it well. Thank you.
Thanks for sharing. So I'm looking, I don't see anyone else who was asked to be unmuted, but I do have a few folks that have put in the questions box their introductions. So I'll read through those. So we have Lori joining us from Sampson County Schools as their ITF. And Lori shares that since going remote, we have had an increase in Canvas users. We also have Anita Martin with us from Wayne County. She has successfully integrated a few LTIs, woohoo, and she's got the growing with Canvas course usage has increased and teachers are loving it. Wonderful. We also have Marilyn Kennedy with us from Duplin County Schools. And all right, James, you want me to unmute you? So it looks like your puppy is glad she's settled down. So let me see if I can unmute you, James. There you go. You should be able to.
Hey, everybody. This is James Doherty from Davidson County Schools in Lexington. And I had told Pam that I have a puppy that I'm trying to train. And, I think he's training me more than I'm training him, but he's all settled now. We've had a great increase in Canvas. Our teachers, we had a 47% increase from February to March, and I'm sure it's been even more from March to April. And we've had a 44% increase in active courses that are being used. So we think that is great data, and we're very excited. And I think that's going to continue. I don't think it'll go away because a lot of these folks are first-time users. So thank you.
Yeah, James, those are great data points to share. Thank you. And I think you're not doing the dog thing right if you don't feel like the dog is training you versus you training the dog, as I've been through it now with several of mine. All right, so also we have Gina Hutchins with us, and she's from Yadkin County Schools. She has way too much noise in the background. Our teachers have really stepped up to the plate using Canvas and sharing. So as sad as the situation is, it's helping us out with growing Canvas as a district. Absolutely, yeah. You know, it's unfortunate that it takes a crisis to kind of push us forward, but we definitely have seen that across the state. So, anyone else would like to chime in? All right, I don't see anybody else. So.
All right, thank you all for sharing. It's super exciting for me to be able to hear those successes, and I'm glad that the efforts that you all have put in for years are paying off. I know I've had a couple people mention to me, you know, we've been saying this stuff forever, and now everybody's listening, and that's certainly a celebration, I know, for the work that you all do. And I know that the people in your districts, you know, whether it be executive leadership or, you know, teachers, administrators, parents, and even students are all recognizing the contributions and the value that you add. So thank you so much for letting us be a small part of that and being that platform for success. Please do give us your feedback for webinars so that we can plan for next year. The survey is open until Friday, May 8th. So if you get a chance, please do make sure that you click on that link and give us your feedback. So I thought, you know, when we send out the registrations, we do ask for your suggested topics and questions and items for discussion. And a lot of the things we kind of grouped into monitoring usage and impact. And a lot of you have reached out to me, and a lot of others in the state have reached out to me and or Jamie or Lauren and have asked about, you know, some of the reports that are available and how best to identify those, you know, students who are not logging in and not participating. And we certainly have a variety of reports that allow you to do that. And we'll talk about those reports in a few moments. But I wanted to spend just a little bit of time first to talk about what we would do in a face-to-face situation. So in the school building, you know, what do we do to identify at-risk students? So outside of this particular, you know, situation and crisis that we're in, and outside of remote learning that we've all had to adjust to, how do we identify at-risk students? And the answer to that, as you know, is our teachers. And within Canvas, teachers have so much access to what their students are doing, things that they can see at the course level that are more difficult to see or to validate at the account level. And so I wanted to take just a little while to look at some of those things that teachers can see. So in a Canvas course, we know we have those analytics. And I do encourage you, if you have not yet turned on new analytics, my recommendation would be to turn that on. I think the new analytics provides much more information. It's more user-friendly, and it is definitely something that right now in the current situation we're in, I think could be very, very valuable for your teachers. So teachers, and we're going to look at new analytics in just a moment together too, but they do have those new analytics. Obviously, they have the grade book, so they have both the traditional grades, which even if they're not giving student grades, just the grade book view alone shows them student submissions. I know a lot of people have adjusted to complete, incomplete grades or display grades, and so they can at least, you know, see complete and incomplete Obviously, they can see missing status. If they are still assigning due dates, which I know we all caution about due dates given our inconsistency in student access to device and internet, but if they are still doing due dates, then they have late statuses, and those things are color coded. The missing and late statuses are color coded, so it's really easy for a teacher to see. They obviously can see submissions because an icon appears when a student has submitted something on the grade book. Also, learning mastery, if they're using course outcomes, they can use the learning mastery gradebook not as giving evaluative grades at all, but just seeing how students are doing in terms of their mastery of course outcomes and standards and skills. So as we're trying to provide feedback to students right now, then that's a fantastic tool for teachers to employ in their classes if they haven't previously been using rubrics aligned to outcomes, or quizzes aligned to outcomes, or question banks aligned to outcomes. They can certainly do so now to start preparing for whatever final pushes they're doing to make sure students have mastered as much of the content and the skills as possible throughout the remainder of the course. Quiz statistics allow item analysis, as well as for those that are like new quizzes that are connected to outcomes. You have outcomes reports specific to quizzes. Teachers can see page views. They can see participations. So for each student, they can see the number of page views. They can see the number of participations, and they can even see that weekly. So it's not just over time. They can see it weekly. How many page views and participations did a student have? They also can see the last page view, the date, and the last participation and the date. So that lets them, again, stay on top of those students who have gone silent, perhaps. Some students may have been very active in the first couple of weeks and then dropped off. And that's really easy to identify through that last page view and last participation data available in new analytics. For specific resources in a course, they can see viewed, didn't view, and participated, didn't participate by student. And not only does that help them to identify at-risk students, but it also helps them, I think, with their own course design. What resources are beneficial to students? What resources are students accessing most? And then there is even a communication log. So if they're using Canvas as a communication platform, whether that be through SpeedGrader feedback or inbox messaging, they can see that communication that they've had with the students. Because I know very often when we're identifying at-risk students, that's one of the things that we're asked to report is what does that communication look like? And so all of those things are available in Canvas for them. And as I was thinking about if I were still in my school district or still in a school building, and we were thinking about how are we identifying those at-risk students? How are we identifying those students that we need to have some contact with, some type of outreach? I thought to our graduation surveys. I know you all probably have a similar process. When I was still in the classroom, every year about this time or a little earlier, we would get a survey that said what students are at risk of especially seniors, what seniors are at risk of not passing your class. And so we would complete the survey so that someone, whether that be an administrator or a guidance counselor, most often guidance counselor, or possibly social worker, someone was reaching out to that student to help them get back on track for success. And so I thought about that, and I thought, well, again, we have tons of reports available at the account level that you can pull. I know you're being asked to report on, what students are participating, how many students, what's that activity level look like. But even if you see time logged in, that time logged in doesn't necessarily tell you what students are doing, whereas the information that teachers have within their courses really gives them a much bigger picture of what students are actually doing. And so I thought if I was still in the school building or in the school district, then I probably would recommend the utilization of some type of reporting mechanism like this. And so for each teacher, I would ask them to complete this form per student that they had identified that was at risk, giving some information just general about the teacher, the course, the students, contact information if available, especially for guardians if necessary. And then asking some more detailed information that, again, the teacher certainly has access to. That student grade as of March 13th or whatever date that you're using, student current course grade, student page views, participations, last page view, last participation, the reason that they've identified that student at risk, and then a little description of that. Previous communication they've had with the student and or guardian, asking them to describe that, and then a recommended action in additional details. Because again, as a teacher, they have access to, through their course, all of this information that could really be helpful in identifying those students that needed additional outreach. And so while I know you all are doing a great job of pulling reports and giving information at a very high level, and that's great to identify trends. If you're seeing a lot of increase in usage and logins or decrease in usage and logins, or you're looking at sub-account reporting and you're seeing that this school is really rocking it, those trends are fantastic. But when it comes down to identifying specific students at risk, I think we really would go back to the way that we've always done it, and that would be to rely on that information from teachers. So as you're thinking and moving forward and planning for remote learning, I know as many of you have seen that there's some discussion of having remote learning plans. Really, I would encourage you to, again, think about that teacher level reporting and identification of those students who need additional support. And so I've provided here some of the links to the guides that I think would be helpful for you to share. And as you're continuing to work with teacher professional development in Canvas, I'm so excited and encouraged by all of you saying, that teachers are really, using Canvas at a higher, level. They're participating, completing the Growing with Canvas course, and also your additional PD opportunities that you've created. And so as you think about now, you probably have hit a really great percentage of your teachers that have had that beginning Canvas training, and now you want to take it to the next level. And so as you're taking it to the next level, I would really encourage you to think about not only instructional design, which is super important in another conversation, but also analytics, and again, what they can see and how they can identify those students that need additional support. So I've added some links to some of the guides. If you are still using old analytics, I've linked to the guides there, as well as new analytics we're going to take a look at. In addition to the analytics, there are also course access reports for individual users. You can see a summary of all student interactions. You can see your course interactions with individual students. And then even just the context card for students in a course is a really great just snapshot for teachers of identifying those students that might have some type of risk. You also have, and also to celebrate those students who are doing, well and are, really rocking it and really participating. I mentioned earlier, love for you to share your success stories with me. I know that personally, I've had a fifth grade or a dad of a fifth grade student telling me that, this student struggles in a face-to-face environment, but, that he gets up every morning and is super excited to log into Canvas, and he's doing really good work and contributing to discussions, and has created some video projects. And, the dad has just been blown away by what the student is doing, and also that motivation and excitement that he's had for the online learning piece. And so, we talk about at-risk students a lot, but also those celebrations, identifying these students who have possibly even had, and seen improvements in terms of what they've been able to do and accomplish and participate in an online environment. In addition to all the analytics, you have the quiz guides. And again, I've put those here for you: quiz statistics, quiz logs, the reports for new quizzes, how to use moderation, and then some links to the gradebook, how to use the icons and colors, and Learning Mastery gradebook. So I'm going to pop over to Canvas, and I do apologize in advance, just because with my sandbox course, I don't have great data. A lot of it's old things that I've had, but I do want to show you again just some of those things. So from new analytics, and you probably all noticed that we've added some trays that pop out to help teachers navigate through some of these tools. They also can turn that off. So I could say, don't show me that again when I'm ready, and I know that I know how to use this. But I just wanted to show you that with new analytics, if you haven't visited it in a while, overall, in terms of the course, a teacher can look at, grades for specific assignments, what that average is. They can look at an individual assignment. They can see that grade distribution chart. They can even message students directly from here, whether they're in a score range, missing, or late, so that they could tell students, I'm giving you an additional attempt, or here's a resource to help you with that. Whatever they would be appropriate. They can celebrate the students that had success. They can message directly from analytics. They also, when they're looking at the grade distribution, they can click on that and see the students who scored, and they also could download that CSV. They can download a lot of information here. They can filter it by type of assignments. They also can look at a data table instead, if they prefer that, instead of the graph. Again, that gives them some of that same information when they click on it. They can compare a specific student to the course average. If they wanted to even have display shapes, it would change the shape, not only the color, but also the shape. So they can see for this particular student, what his designation was or his score was. So lots of good data there. They can even compare sections also. So that's just available with grades. With weekly online activity, they can see the online activity. And again, this is not great data, but you can see, you can see, and the reason it's not great data is because in my sandbox, I don't have a ton of data. Not that it's not good information, but I can see here how many page views my course had per week. Shows you weekly. When you click on a particular week, it will show you how many page views and participations those students had. You can see who didn't participate. And again, not only in identifying students that are possibly at risk or need additional support, but also looking at those course resources that are most valuable. And I also can compare my students here. So I can see that Max had a little uptick. I can click out to individual students and see his course grade, weekly online activity, and also I mentioned earlier communication. So if I'd had communication with this student, so that you can see back in February that there was an instructor communication, but you can see instructor message there, 2 instructor messages there. Going to go back to course analytics. I'm going to exit out of here. I can see students here. This is where I was saying most of the information that I included on this at-risk student report could come from this student's page of new analytics. So I've got the student, I've got their current grade. I didn't ask for percent on time just because, again, I know that we're being super sensitive to students right now and their ability to access, remote learning opportunities, given, differences in device and internet activity or internet access. But last participation, last page view, number of page views, and number of participations. So that gives me a really good idea of where my students are, the amount of participation they're having. Much more rich data than what I can get at the account level. So again, thinking about those teachers and what those teachers can provide. I'm going to pause because I see a couple of questions.
Yeah, so Christy, Dr. McManus asked if a teacher messages the student, does it go to the student's default email address or just to the Canvas inbox?
So when they message a student, it would go from inbox, or in here also, it would go to their Canvas inbox, and then it would depend on how the student had their notifications set to whether or not they would get an email as well. You know, for every student or every person, I'm going to open this in a new tab. For every person, they can set up their notifications. And so that's conversations. So if students have set that up to be sent to, and you know, if you have immediately, daily, weekly, or not at all, it depends on that setting that for the student that the student has used. There, we will look at the analytics that are available at the district level, but again, this information is much richer at the course level. Besides the fact that the information is richer, the teacher also then has knowledge probably of those individual students and their circumstances. There are some students who possibly, you know, are great test takers, that, you know, are just really high flyers, that may be able to complete assignments or assessments really quickly with a high level of success, that are not actually active in the course as often. You know, we've been talking about personalized learning forever, and we know that, you know, not all students need the same amount of interaction with those course materials. And so again, looking at the account level, you may not have that knowledge of those students. So it may be that when you see students that had lower amounts of participations, you might think that they were at risk, whereas the teacher in that course, having all of the detail they have, including that relationship and that knowledge of the student, they would be able to identify which students truly might be at risk.
All right, thank you.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, just to follow up on that, Gina was asking if admins can go in and make student notifications be sent to their email. Is there some way to do that, or does it have to be each individual?
Yeah, so I mean, obviously there's default settings, but if a student has changed that, then you cannot force it currently. Now that is a feature request. You know, we have a very active Canvas community, and one of the things that I always tell people, that Canvas basically gets improvements or updates or product development in one of three ways. First would just be, you know, best practice research, industry trends, right? So something has been identified as a good learning practice that we can help support. So obviously, you know, we stay abreast of that research. Two would be obviously engineering bugs. You know, if we find something that's actually broken or not working as anticipated, then we would do development. But the third way is through our Canvas community and those feature ideas. So really and truly, Canvas cares a lot about those crowdsourced votes and ideas. And so one of the things that is an idea that has in here to be voted on, and you certainly could search for it, is to have a default or the district or teacher ability to control notifications for their students.
And then following up with Gina also had another question. So she's getting, when a teacher is reporting issues, a student's having issues in Canvas, a lot of times she goes in there and acts as a student to see what's going on. And she's finding that when she acts as a student, it actually records that date for the teacher as the date that the student last accessed the course, because it's really just her going in and acting as that student. Is there any way to change that?
Unfortunately, that's not. It's gonna, when you and only account admin can act as students, not even like sub account admin can act as students. But yeah, like I went in and acted as these two students today. So as Gina reports, you can see that it shows last activity time, and that was truthfully me. Actually, any of these students. That was really me logging in as them or acting as them. But when you, as the accounts admin, it tells you that you're good. Any action you perform, it's going to act. The user performed them. It says audit logs record that you were the one who performed the action. Honestly, that somewhere probably when you're doing using API data to record activity, that probably doesn't show as as this user's activity, but on the people page it does for sure. Sorry about that, but that is unfortunately the way it currently works. And Dawn, we will definitely go in and talk about the account level reports as well. If you do not have the option as a, and I'm responding to questions, y'all, so if you don't have the option to send a notification to your email, then that means that the way that you are provisioning students does not automatically bring in an email address. Most of you do. If you don't, then students absolutely can add email addresses as a contact method. And you can see that I could even add additional contact methods if I wanted to as a user. But most of you should have email addresses coming in populating from PowerSchool. So let's talk about account admin, and we can circle back to any of those other discussions. I do want to show you a couple things first. Let me do that. At the account level, turning on new analytics is in your settings. And it is a feature option. And it is new analytics, not the API process. Some of those will be hidden from you. Sorry, I see more than you do. We go down. It's a course level one. New course and user analytics. Now, I, in my sandbox, currently have it set to allow just because I have to support people who have not yet turned it on. So if I need to show what those old analytics look like, I can do that. And I'll show you the difference. So if you only have it set to allow, teachers have to turn it on in their courses to see it. I can go to settings. And as the teacher here, I am going to turn it off just to show you what the old analytics looks like as a reminder. So old analytics is in this format. Still gives great information. It's just not actionable, so you can't message students directly from there, and it just does not give you the same level of detail that you get with new analytics. So again, I highly encourage you to turn it on But if you have not yet done that, then teachers do still have the ability to turn it on if you set it to allow, or they still have some good data available in the old analytics. Turn that back on. Before moving on to account, I want to show you just a couple other things I thought about. So I'm going to go to my grade book. So again, in a course, you can see, and when you go to statuses, it shows you, and teachers can change the colors if they wanted to, but for the teacher, it shows them, so late, missing, resubmitted, dropped, excused. So again, as I was mentioning, not only do you have grades, not only can you see if a student has submitted something, like here, you can see a student has submitted. If they've changed grade display to completed incomplete, you can see that. They can make those changes there. But you have all of that great detail in that late and missing assignments as well. You also, I mentioned that student context card. When you click on a student from the gradebook or people page, or definitely from the gradebook, I have to test the people page, but you get this great slide out that gives you just a real quick snapshot in terms of the rest of the class. What does that participation look like? In terms of the rest of the class, what are the page views? It actually will display the last 10 graded items, and you can see their grade. I only have 6 in this course that have been graded for the students, so that's why it doesn't show that. Shows you the number of missing, shows you the number of late. You can message that student directly from there. You also can go straight to that student's grades. So you can see the grades, both the traditional grade book as well as the Learning Mastery grade book, if that's been turned on in the course. And I'm just going to go back because that's going to take a second to load because I've got way too many outcomes in that course. And I'm going to show you that it also, you can pop out to that student's specific analytics in the course as well. And you could even download that. Again, you can see if you wanted to see that data table. I really love the data table when you're looking at student view specifically. So you see that course grade, the due date, when they submit it, if it had a status and the grade. Weekly online activity, you can see for the weeks, the number of page views, the number of participations, and then again, communication, you can see the communication that went through from those teachers and students. So even if I open that up, I get that, I can have that in a spreadsheet as well. I mean, you could do that for the course as well. I'm just on the students currently. From people page, again, you can get, so I was right. I started to say that, I thought I was wrong. So you can get to that same information. You also can jump to that new analytics here. You can look at user details. And when you're looking at user details, you can see a interactions report, as well as an access report and new analytics here. So I'm going to show you teacher activity report for this student. And this is for all courses, but you can see last student interaction in each of these courses and ungraded assignments, final score, current score. You also can see an access report for this course. Last viewed, times participated, and times viewed for that student. So again, all of these are course level analytics, but again, just super rich. Now I'm going to go to admin, and we're going to switch gears just a little and talk about what, as an admin, you can see, as well as what your sub-account admin can see. If you have set your permissions to have a principal or counselor account level role, you can then make them a sub-account admin so that they can perform most of the same actions that you perform at the account level. They can perform at the sub-account level. Now, there are some differences, like active those, but there are some things, most things they can do, including running reports. So I'm going to go back to my main accounts. I'm going to go to settings. Actually, before we go to settings and reports, let's go back to, I'm going to go to statistics and show you. So for statistics from your account level, you can see this is over the last 30 days only. So I know a lot of times when you get data from us, the numbers are not always the same. And that's because different places that the numbers are being pulled from are calculating things differently, or possibly the time span is different. And this would be a example of that. So for this particular page, the statistics, this is showing over time, or the last 30 days. So I can see that in the last 30 days, I have 87 courses, a teacher, 4 students, and 4 users that have been active. Over time, you can see that trend. You can even download this. Now it does ask a lot. Oh, sorry. You can download it also. So if I downloaded that, you would be able to see it's not great. It's not a great view, but you do have the ability to download that. If you, sometimes you'll get a pop-up message here that says you have to have Flash, I think, for that to show. So just do know that sometimes that is a message that you get, that you have to enable Flash. So you have, again, course statistics. You have, as an account admin, analytics. So this is still looks like the old analytics, and that's because any of you that have been following the analytics discussion with us over the last couple of years is we have been doing development on analytics, but it's been in phases, and we felt like the most important thing to do was to start with the teacher. So that's why the new analytics is available in the teacher view, and we started with the grade, and then we added the weekly online activity, and then communication. There are plans to improve the account level analytics as well, but currently this is important to note that these are by term. So, you know, your default term is probably just your manually created courses, or PD courses, or home content courses that sandbox courses you've created for teachers. In order to actually see a specific school, you would have to find their term, and I do know that for most of you, you have multiple terms for schools, even in the same school year. So unfortunately, that is something that you would have to navigate, or teacher sub-account admin to navigate. You also can change this to a table view if you prefer. Going to go back. So now I'm going to go into settings, and we're going to look at reports. So in your reports, and again, these should be available to your sub-account admin as well to run for their sub-accounts. You have course access reports. Actually, let me check something. Dawn, I'm going to use yours real quick. I'm going to look at somebody else's because I might have some that you don't have. Okay, sorry about that. All right, so you have the ones that I would say are very pertinent right now. Not that they're not all good, but you have last enrollment activity, which shows a user ID, username, and their last activity. So it tells you when that last activity is. You have last user access, which is one that I know a lot of people are using right now. And so you have, again, user ID, user sys ID, the username, and then last access, and it even gives you the IP address. Now, it's important to note that for a lot of these reports, mobile activity is not included. Last user access is one that can be misleading. because when a student is using the app, it does not count it as a login unless they re-authenticate. And so, to the best of my knowledge, that means they would have to actually log out of the app and back in. So a lot of times that's not recorded. And that's again where I go back to, it's why it's so important to rely on our teachers, because some of the data is not going to be accurate for mobile. And so you may have students who are absolutely participating and viewing their coursework, but they're not being logged on some of these reports because they're on mobile devices. Again, those are feature requests, and those are things that we continue as my customer success team to say we have to have improvement in, but currently there are some limitations there. So just do know that, again, while these reports are fantastic at helping you to identify trends, I don't think that I would use them as gospel when looking at students that were at risk or needed additional outreach. I would refer to the teacher then. But again, for identifying trends, this is super helpful. Usually when I run a last user access, I sort it descending by date, and then I just take out, I only look at the data for the time period that I need to look at. So if you're looking at March 13th forward, then you would see you would look at the report, again, date descending, to see who all had access since March 13th. You have, again, all of these are helpful, but the ones specifically right now that are helpful are your students with no submissions. So this is a report of students in a term that have not submitted an assignment between the given date range in a course. It's 1 row per student. So you say you designate the date range, but it can be no longer than 2 weeks. So that is a limitation there, but just know that you could look within the last 2 weeks, students that have had no submissions in a course. Now, one thing I get asked about some of these reports, the next couple I'm going to talk about, including this one, is there are some people who are not as concerned at the district level about whether students are submitting in every class. They just want to know that they're submitting in at least one class. Unfortunately, these are going to be by course. So this is not going to tell you students who haven't submitted anything at all. It's going to tell you every student that didn't submit something in an individual course. So let's just say that Heather had submitted something in an English class. She would still appear on this report because she had not submitted in history or math. Personally, I think that that's better data, but just to know that that's going to be students. They could be active in other courses, but that's just saying they're not submitting in that course. You also, it's going to be another great report is going to be user course access log. And this is the one Dawn asked about in a question a few minutes ago. This is a new report that was added this weekend. And, I don't know if you have paid a lot of attention to our ready release notes, but Canvas has been doing weekly releases. Generally, we do a release on the 3rd Saturday of every month. We've been doing weekly releases to try to meet the needs that have been identified throughout the COVID crisis. And this was one of those needs that we were able to help, meet the request or the ask that came in. So this will show the activity. It shows activity from all users enrolled in courses in a term. It has 1 row per student activity. It has the students' times participated, times viewed, and then it has last viewed. So this gets closer to giving you the same information that the teacher has, but there are still some things, that are not on that report, including their grade as of March 13th, including their current grade. It does still have some of those things that are missing. However, it has it is really good data. The other thing that's nice about the teacher analytics versus this one is the teacher can see things by week. This report, the times viewed and times participated are counters from the beginning of time, but it will only retrieve a month's worth of data. If you do not designate the time period, then it's only going to return it from the beginning of the previous week. So there are some limitations here. Again, it's a great report. I'm super proud and excited that we were able to offer it and to add it to everyone, to your Canvas instance. But just do know that the data that the teacher has in terms of their course analytics is still a little bit, it gives you a fuller picture. But this is certainly helpful. And I do think sometimes people have been asking us for reports that show the amount of time logged in, and I mentioned this earlier, but I think this gives you a much better picture of what are they actually doing. They didn't just log in, but they're actually viewing items and they're actually participating in doing things. So just, this is again, a really good report that I'm glad has been added. So hopefully you'll have an opportunity to look at that. And the other report that I wanted to mention is Zero Activity. Zero Activity shows you all students enrolled in courses in a specific term that have not visited the course since the date you designate. So when you run this report, then you designate what date, and then it tells you all students that have not visited a course in a given term. Now, again, this is going to show students multiple times if they have not visited several courses. And so one of the asks I know has been, well, I just want to see students one time, and I only want to see students who haven't logged in at all. This isn't going to show you that this is going to show you those students for every course that they have not yet logged into since that time period. So I'm going to go back to my account. I hope, Dawn, that was okay that I showed from yours, just because I have some other things. But I'm going to configure that Zero Activity so you could see I could run it. I'm going to run it for all my terms, and I could start it at March 13th. I'm going to run that report. And as you know, our reports do take a while to run. And that's been another question I've gotten a lot recently is, I started a report and it's been 2 hours. Some of these reports, some of you have 5, 6, 7 years of worth of enrollments and courses and things that it's filtering through. So just know that some things do take a while to run. You will get an email. Most people get emails whenever those courses have completed, and then you can download it. I also sometimes, if I think that it's a report that probably should have finished, or if I'm just impatient, because I sometimes am, I will just refresh and go back to that tab, and as you can see, it actually has completed, and I got my email. I see my notification now. But I'm going to open that, and I can see all of the students. And again, this is all students for each course that they have had zero activity in since March 13th. Now, in my sandbox, that's a lot because I don't have a lot of students who are participating in my sandbox, but that's a really good report. Now, the other thing that people ask me about is the fact that when you go to run a report, even if you're at the sub-account level, so let me go into my sub-account. I'm going to go to my sub-account, and I'm going to act as my sub-account admin. So this is my sub-account admin. I've set the permissions that I want for her to have. I'm going to go into that sub-account, and I'm going to go to settings and reports. Now, she can run these reports, as I mentioned, but when she goes to run them, she is still going to see all of the terms, not just the terms that are applicable to her school. So that is I know that's something that, people have asked again that they would love to see changed. But currently, she is going to see all of those terms. So I would just run it the same way. If I wanted just to choose specific terms, I could do that, but just be mindful again that each sub-account probably has multiple terms for this school year. So you probably, for each school, have a year-long term. You probably have a first semester term. You probably have a second semester term. So at minimum, you probably have 3 terms per school. You may not be as concerned with first semester at this point, but you probably would want to run year-long and semester. And then if you have schools that also use quarter-based courses, so you actually have courses that are actually designated as a third quarter term, then they would have to run those like third quarter and fourth quarter term reports as well. So just do know that they can run them, but they are going to see all the terms listed when they go to those reports. I'm going to pause for any questions. Reports about what teachers are doing. So, as I mentioned, let me go back to my sandbox and settings and reports. Last user access is a good report. It does tell you the last access. So again, knowing the caveat with mobile being, a limitation there. So I would want to investigate more fully, and I'll kind of show you how you could do that. But if I was concerned because I looked at my last user login report and I saw a teacher that had not logged in, in a week or several days, whatever that time frame may be, then I would actually visit the people page for that teacher. So I'm going to show you. So like I would do last user access. I would sort it to descending. I would also filter it by user sysid, because your user sysids, most of you for your teachers, are UDCID underscore and then their UDCID number. So it's really easy to filter that report by sysid, because your students, for most of you, your sysid is student underscore and then that student number. So really easy to filter. And again, then you could just look if it was descending time for anybody that you were concerned about. And then when you were actually, if you identified a teacher, someone that you were concerned about, you could go to, and this is for students too, as an admin. Now your teachers don't have access to this, but you as an admin could go to that teacher, and then you could look at all of their page views. And mobile is included here. So if you have a student also that you're concerned about, as an admin, you can also go into their people page and look at their page views. And again, mobile is recorded on this page. You also can download a CSV file. It's not going to go back to the beginning of time. There is a limitation for how many rows it would record. But you absolutely, should be able to get a good snapshot, since if you're specifically worried at this particular moment about since the March 13th timeframe, then you should be able to see that. Let's see. If there are other, I'm trying to think if there are other reports that possibly, I'm going to mention we do have some custom reports that are available. Some of these reports, custom reports come with a cost. We can enable 3 reports for free through July 1st. At this moment in time, I don't know if you would be interested in having access to a report that we remove again in July, but this is one of those reports. It's called a course syllabus report. So we could enable it, or then if you wanted to purchase it, you could. We also have managed Canvas data services. We also have, report libraries that you can purchase, but A lot of those things are for purchase. But I'm going to show you, this is one that's one of the free ones we can enable. It shows you for each course, an instructor name, instructor email, all of this information, and then it shows the information about the course. So the question was, how do you identify possibly what teachers are doing? This is a great way to know, you know, looking at the courses for teachers, what have they included in their course? I think that's very, very helpful. Another thing that's helpful when you're looking at, you know, just trying to gauge teacher participation, I do think that, trying to look and see, grade exports, you know, depending on what your grading policy is currently for Canvas, you know, having grade exports would show you per course, you know, which courses had grades. So there are a lot of the reports that you can see. Now, in terms of just like, again, length of time is something that it's not that we can't necessarily give you this way. Now, any of you who are familiar with the fact that we have Canvas data, if you have someone who can work with big data, flat files, then we have a lot of different information there. Also, if you have someone who is skilled in running API calls, then you can run a lot of different API calls here. One of the ones that I was looking at yesterday is if you were running an enrollments API, it does give you per enrollment, last activity time, total activity time, and this would be for per user. So it would show you for each enrollment that total activity time for a student. So that's something that, again, if you have somebody who is skilled at doing that, then that's something that is definitely available through the API. So just know that you have access to that. It's just not a standard report that's available. I'm going to pause for questions. Sarah, I see your question about the new term. I know that actually is something that I'm going to address next. So before we move on to talking about terms and grading periods, are there any other questions about reports or monitoring usage?
I'm not seeing any, Christy.
Okay, great, thank you. All right. So, some of you have contacted us and said that you are adjusting term dates, you're adjusting grading periods, possibly adding, you know, a different term, and what impact is that going to have, and what's the best practice there. So all of your terms are managed through your PowerSchool provisioning and sync. So if you are making changes to the actual course term, and I'm not talking about grading periods, if you are making changes to the actual course term, then that needs to be done in PowerSchool, and then it will sync to Canvas. We do not recommend that you change term end dates in Canvas. We would only recommend that you change term end dates in PowerSchool and then let your sync provision those term end dates. So I would never recommend that you change them in Canvas when I'm actually talking about terms, again, course terms. Instead, you would change them in PowerSchool and let them provision to Canvas in a sync. Also, you will be receiving, just as an FYI, you should receive on Monday a survey. Each of you who have been with us for more than 1 year know that you get this every year. You're going to get your rollover survey that will ask you what date you want to end your PowerSchool Sync, or pause it, not end it, but pause your PowerSchool Sync for this school year, and what date you want us to restart it for the new school year. I understand that not everyone has those plans in place. Just know that when you pause your PowerSchool Sync, it is only pausing the provisioning of like new courses, new students, new enrollments. So if you felt comfortable that you were not having additional schedule changes or student transfers in schools as of, say, May 30th, but you knew you were going to still, need to use grade passback if you're using grade passback still. I know that's a difference over many districts statewide. But if you were still using grade passback still works. The pause is for provisioning enrollment changes. And if you are not certain about your restart date, you can always come back to us and change that later. But if you do not complete the survey, we will pause your sync and will not restart it until we hear from you. It won't be paused until, and you'll get this in the email, and please forgive me if I'm misquoting. I think the default date is June 30th, that we would go ahead and pause it, but again, we would not restart it. And I have had this, like within the last month, even a school that reached out and said, we never restarted our sync this year for PowerSchool. It's because they never submitted the survey. So just please do submit that survey. It's very important because we want to know when you want us to put your new data in. But again, if you're changing actual course terms, do so in PowerSchool and it'll sync here. But two things that I want to remind you of. If you need to extend student and teacher access dates, then you can change those. So you can, most often people, even if they don't extend student access dates, they do extend teacher access dates to allow teachers time to continue grading. That's not the only place that you need to extend if you want teachers to continue grading, but that is one place. This particular teacher access extends their ability to edit their courses. For students, it would extend the ability, if you extended that, for them to submit assignments and possibly even view material in the course. Depending on your account settings, some students can view course material after the term end date by default, and some cannot. So it depends on your account settings if you've got these things checked, right? So if you have this checked, restrict students from accessing courses after end date, then if you had not extended that student access date, they would lose access to the course altogether. Also, most people do restrict students from viewing quiz questions after course end date. So that again is another setting that, depending on that, would be whether or not students could continue to access in a view mode the course if you had not extended that student access date. But when we talk about grading periods, so not talking about course terms, but grading periods, if you are utilizing grading periods in Canvas and you have changed your grading period for Q3 or 5th 6 weeks or whatever, then you need to go into Canvas grading, go into your grading period set. This is a grading period set. Go into that set, and then you can see those settings. I have been asked by many people, we need to stop Q3 grades at March 13th. Again, this is up to your district. I'm not recommending the practice. I'm just answering the question that we've received from a lot of people. Going into Q3 and editing that so that the end date for Q3 grades was March 13th. making sure to give teachers adequate time to alter those grades. So if you want it to be the end of the year, you could have it be, you know, June 15th or whatever date you needed it to be. But having that, if you wanted to, and you were actually adjusting your grading period, then you could change it in Canvas here, and then you could start quarter 4 at, this really should not overlap, so it must be just the time. Let me see. 11:59. It's interesting. This normally won't let you overlap at all. Yeah, so it is March 14th at 12 a.m. is when that's showing. It's interesting that that's showing as the 13th, but it's actually March 14th at 12 a.m. But then I would have it just pick back up, and that way anything students were submitting in this grading period was not being calculated into that quarter 3 grade. Obviously, these weights I would adjust. Typically, I don't personally do weighted grading periods or displaying totals for grading periods because I just want my Canvas gradebook to reflect the current quarter grade. So I usually uncheck both of those myself. Are there any questions about term access dates or grading periods? In courses,
Christy, I'm not seeing any new questions coming in.
okay, thank you. In courses, when teachers are using grading periods, and I hope this one I have grading periods assigned to it. I don't. Let me go back to, sorry about that. I'm going to show you what it looks like in the teacher view when you're using grading periods. I got to figure out 1920. So in courses, when you're using grading periods, teachers on their assignments page can filter by grading period. Oh, I already did that. Okay. Also, in their gradebook, they can go to view, filters, check grading periods, and then they can change by grading period. Now, you saw that I took off the display final grade. So the final grade in my gradebook for my students is only going to be for those particular quarters, and it's not trying to calculate an overall grade. My recommendation is to let PowerSchool do the overall grade calculation and just have the individual quarter or grading period results show in the gradebook. Also want to mention, a lot of people are asking us about grade pass back. Again, not trying to make any recommendations about practice, just answering questions that we've received from a lot of people. A lot of people have said we needed to end grading, or we want to end grade pass back. Sorry, forgot my question. Some people have said we want to end grade pass back. Currently, it is very, very difficult for us to completely remove grade pass back from your instance. And then we have to completely uninstall it and also do some scripting. And then if you wanted it reinstalled in the fall, we would have to reinstall it and also do some things. So it is very, very difficult to do. So just know that it's not just a switch that you turn off or on for grade pass back. However, teachers absolutely, if they have set assignments to pass back, can just toggle that. So green means it's supposed to go to sync to SIS. Untoggling it means it will not. So teachers can certainly just disable that on their assignments page. Also, you can move. So, in order for grade pass back to work, the assignments have to be in a Power Teacher Pro imported category. I'm going to show you what those look like, because I don't have them in my sandbox because I don't have a connection to PowerSchool. But teachers have to put assignments in a Power Teacher Pro. Oh, sorry. I clicked on the wrong presentation. This one's the one I want. I just want to show you this, what a grading category looks like that has been imported. So teachers go to their assignments page, they import those assignments, assignment groups. They can click on this icon, and this icon, or should not click on this icon. When they import their groups, this icon will appear for the groups that they have imported. So in a course, if all of these assignments are in a category that was imported from Power Teacher Pro, and I no longer want things to sync from my SIS or sync to my SIS to PowerSchool, I can also just move the contents of that entire group to another group, and that will move them. And so that would take them all out of the Power Teacher Pro imported category, which means they would no longer pass back. New feature that happened this weekend is teachers can edit assignment dates in bulk. So just in case you didn't see where I did that, I'm on my assignments page. I go to the 3 dots, the snowman menu, and edit assignment dates, and it lets me edit those assignment dates in bulk. Are there any additional questions about that?
None that I see coming in, Christy.
Great. All right, so, and I did put those reminders here. They can just disable that there. They also can move those contents. So I put a couple screenshots showing what I just did. Just some quick reminders about parent observer. I have put the guides in here for you, and those link to both the web browser guides and 2 mobile guides, both for Android and for iOS devices. There is a new video that is a really well done video that helps with students trying to access Canvas via the Canvas Parent app. Also, this one is not as well done. I put a little caveat there, disclaimer, I created it, but it's to show parents how to create an account using the web browser. And do know parents can see a lot more in the web version than they can in the parent app. We continue to develop the parent app, I think at rapid pace, but just know that the web browser is where they're going to get the most information, the fullest picture. Do know that, as you know, Sarah was mentioning that a lot of people are using conferences. Most of you have probably seen some type of notice that said, if you're using more than 10 concurrent sessions at a time, you're going to have downgraded performance, considering using another tool or moving to Big Blue Button Premium. So I did include some other resources here for you about web conferencing. Microsoft Teams is one that I know a lot of people are experiencing success with. Obviously, there's still Zoom. I removed Zoom from here just because I know there's been concerns, but there is still an integration there. We have done a MacGyver hack for adding in a Google Hangouts meet, and that's there. And then also just some directions for live streaming and video meeting. Just a reminder that we have, again, releases the 3rd Saturday of every month. And so those releases We have the full page here, which is really nice because it has by feature the types of things that are being the types of things that are being released. It also tells you if it's optional, so that would be a feature setting. You also have feature screencasts if you haven't been watching those. They're really nice because if you just wanted to watch a really quick video, and they're all really short, they tell you what each of those was like 58 seconds, right? To show you what mute notifications by course means. I do want to mention that one just because we were talking about notifications earlier, so I'm going back to that. I'm going to pull up that specific release note for you. Right, so this is the feature options. Again, you could turn it on. It allows a user to mute notifications from a specific course. Some of you may want to turn this on. You know, again, I hesitate to provide too much guidance here because I would want my students to get course notifications for the most part. I do know that sometimes when teachers are enrolled in lots of PD courses, that they sometimes wish they weren't getting notifications for all those courses. So this is an option that you can turn on. But I just mentioned it with that caveat. But all of the releases that we have had in terms of our normal release cycle are on this page that you can certainly look at. We also have a dedicated team that works on these each month. So they will be adding the new releases by May 8th. But they give the release, they give a description, and also impacts and considerations. So this is a really great resource. These are former educators that are creating this, and they're like, okay, so what does this mean? So why is this important? And so they have given a little rundown, a release notes rundown of that. So that's a good resource for you, especially if you're putting together newsletters for teachers regularly. There is an upcoming changes page. And if you haven't yet heard the news, we will be fully moving to new quizzes. There is a timeline that has been announced for that. The actual new quizzes or classic quizzes, teachers will no longer be able to create new classic quizzes after June 30th, 2021. So they could still continue to create new quizzes through June 30th, 2021 on the current timeline. But then between June 30th, 2021 and June 30th, 2022, that we will move to completely deprecate the classic quizzes, which means at some point they will no longer have access to those. So you still have time in the coming school year to communicate that, to do training on new quizzes if you haven't yet done so, but just do know that that's coming. These are those ready releases that I mentioned to you earlier, where we've been having weekly releases on Saturday to try to keep up with the demands and the requests that are coming in response to COVID. So some of the things that we have enabled, including that user course access log that I showed you earlier, the due date and availability date that I showed you in bulk edit. And these are some of the other ones that the new tutorials, the slide outs that I showed you, those were new in response. So all of these things we have done just specifically in response to the COVID crisis. So make sure that you're paying attention to those so that you can communicate with your stakeholders. Just a couple of reminders. We have our statewide call Monday at 2 o'clock. Greene County will be joining us to talk about how they're leveraging blueprints to have high quality content, a guaranteed viable curriculum that is able to scale out to their district courses. We also have Canvas webinars. As you know, we have been, Pam and I, facilitating monthly webinars for teachers. We've titled this the Getting Started series. All of those webinar recordings are accessible on this document. And we do still have one coming up. We did change, so for the last couple of months, we have changed the plan's content because of the need. So we had, last month, we just revisited getting started again using announcements and calendar. And we, for this coming month, which is Wednesday at 4 o'clock or 7 o'clock, so people can attend either time. They register by clicking these links. We're going to do remote learning in Canvas, continuing your journey. And some of it's going to be similar to what I've shared with you. I'm going to look at how teachers, again, so this is a teacher webinar. I mean, anyone's welcome to join and register, but it's specifically geared towards teachers to helping them identify those at-risk students. So a lot of the things I will be sharing with those teachers that attend that webinar.
And just to let you know, we did have, the webinar survey that was earlier in the slide deck. We do want your feedback for next year. And I'll also be sending that out to anyone who's attended a webinar this year to get their feedback on what they'd like to see. For 2020, we had a lot of folks that were excited about the on-demand webinars, and if that's the direction that we need to be going versus, offering a webinar at a specific time, we're happy to do so. We just need to know what's the best way to reach folks. So you're welcome to complete that survey. It'll be open through next Friday.
Great, thank you. As of today, as far as I know, Instructurecon in Nashville is still happening. So if you are interested in attending Instructurecon in Nashville and eating some hot chicken with me, it's July 28th through the 30th, and you can register there. They did recently collect feedback on a virtual option, and I have not heard the results of that. So, but just to know, as of today, Instructurecon still open, and it's the first time it's ever been on the East Coast. So, if we have it, and if you're able to attend, and if, all travel restrictions are lifted, then I hope to see you there, and we can have a lot of fun in Nashville. Besides the fact that Instructurecon is just a very valuable experience, and you have an opportunity to connect with a lot of people who are doing the same work you are and have found some really creative solutions. I know as a Canvas admin myself, it was one of the most beneficial conferences I ever attended when I was there as an attendee. I mentioned our Homebase Bulletin teacher spotlights. Please, do those success stories. Love to have them included. This is an example of one. We had, and I put it here again because Sarah Johnson from North Carolina Virtual Public School talked about her use of Canvas and announcements and how that's benefited our students. Iredell had a teacher talking about, I think it was an instructional facilitator or instructional tech facilitator that did a spotlight this past month. We have a teacher from a middle school who's doing a spotlight next month, just talking about how Canvas has helped continue that learning journey for students in a remote environment. So please share those stories with us. And then also just always, I apologize, this is the February one, and we're getting ready to send out May in the next couple weeks, but just remember we are sending these newsletters out, so please be on the lookout for them as well. And that is all I have for you. Lindsay Skidmore, I did see, asked a question about new quizzes and question banks. And I'm going to have to look myself for the answer to that, Lindsay. I don't believe that that has specifically been answered. So here is the new quizzes timeline. You can also download it, and you can also read the blog post about it. This is what shows you. So for quarter, we're going into here. We're in Respondus Lockdown browser is planned, by the way, for quarter 2. Those of you who have been asking about that. So for quarter 4, learning mastery, gradebook integration. This is the plan. You know that timelines can change, but these are the plans. Canvas data integration, course copy, import content migration. New quizzes is on for all accounts by default in December of 2020. 21 classic quizzes officially deprecated, not safe, but deprecated, meaning we won't have any future development on that. Item analysis, CSV export, student analysis, CSV export, create quiz as of, again, July 2021, editing. So there's not specifically an announcement on the timeline for when question banks will move over or what that will look like. But as we continue to get more information about that, we definitely will share it with you. So if I went to the frequently asked questions and question banks. Yeah, so there's nothing in the frequently asked questions yet either. So as we get more information about that, definitely we'll share it. Please be sure to share your feedback. Are there any other questions?
I did want to point out as a reminder that the handouts for today, both slide decks, can be found in the handouts section if you want to download a copy of the PDFs before you leave. You can also access all of our home-based meetup sessions are being recorded and will be published to our YouTube channel and will be sent out in the Friday weekly message, as well as we'll send out an email to those who attended with the specific links to the recordings. So thank you very much, Christy, and everyone for joining us today. I don't see any other questions, but we appreciate you joining us on this rainy day.
Great. I was going to show one thing, just if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Absolutely.
Someone asked about migrating new quizzes. You can, for old quizzes, teachers can go in and migrate them, and that creates a new quiz. So in terms of, being able to preserve the content, they already can go in and just migrate. All of these are new quizzes already, but for these, they could go in and migrate those to new quizzes. Sorry, I didn't mean to click on that, but all right. Back to the wrap up. Thank you all. Please do know that we're here to support you any way we can, and definitely look forward to seeing you next time.
Yes, and we hope to see most of you on Monday for the statewide call. So talk to you soon. Everyone stay safe and stay healthy, and try to make sure that you're not going stir crazy being at home. And I'm trying to make sure I get my walks in when I can. So talk to y'all soon.
Bye.